the Grey Hat Beard podcast. Hello and welcome to show 52 of Grey Hat Beard Princess, the modern workplace podcast where we talk about all things Microsoft 365. I'm the Grey Hat Beard Princess. My name's Kevin McDonnell. I'm the head of practice for modern workplace at CPS and Office Apps and Services MVP.
My name's Al Erdley. I'm the Hat and I work at Microsoft in the Microsoft Technology Centre.
And my name's Gary Trinder. I'm the Beard. I'm a modern work consultant at Microsoft.
Hi, I'm the Princess. I'm Louisa, and I'm Microsoft 365 consultant and MVP as well.
And we are joined by a guest today. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Michael. I'm the guest. And I'm Power Platform consultant in a small company in Germany right now. And yeah, that's about it for the moment, I would say.
For the moment. Now, that is optimism that I like. And that is the kind of go-getting spirit that we like on Grey Hat Beard.
I like to start just slow and then take things off the roof. Right.
Now you're setting expectations.
So this is part one. We're going to be talking about a few bits of news that we've seen recently and pick up. And the first one is, I think it was Al. Did you find this, or Gary, about Microsoft? Now, I'm going to say Priva, but I think one of you disagreed with me and thinks it's Priva, is it?
I've heard it called Priva and Priva. I think, to be honest, I think the name will be quite confusing for people, just because you're going to be typing things in, trying to find it. It's going to be Priva or privacy, but it is an abbreviation of privacy, basically. And it is, I guess, a set of new features that are basically being branded under this Priva brand name. So it's bringing together, I think it's got two things in it at the moment. So it's got the ability to do subject privacy requests at the moment, and it's starting to do some data classification as well, and protecting data. So it's features that are very similar to what's currently available under the compliance manager.
Yeah, so I think as soon as we agree on how we will pronounce it, they will change the name. So this is at least my very educated guess on this. And so I think it's just like making it easier for organizations to see where is personal data exposed, because people want to know, and most probably we're overexposing personal data. It's of course AI infused, so that will help a lot. But still, I think it is somehow rebranding what was already there. Plus, if they do so, it will be just like easier for customers to adopt this, because everything that is hard for customers, just governance is hard, compliance is hard, privacy is hard, transparency is hard. They do not really want to think about that, and they do not really want to put effort into that. And then just like, yeah, I can just buy a license and then it automatically works. That is a nice promise. And I feel like this could be just like not very true, because still we will need to do things. And still, there will be consultants and developers being needed to just implement all the stuff so that it works correctly. So there is no just like put this toggle on the right side or just like switch it on for privacy. But still, they managed to just like have another brand and another confusing thing and another additional license to sell. So I think we will notice in the future how this works out.
I guess one thing I'm a bit confused is if I've got an E5 license already, I've got my compliance things. Do I need to pay more for this, or is this any different to kind of doing compliance checks using that? I don't quite see what the difference is.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about licensing. So this is one of my very favorite topics in the book.
There's a phrase you don't hear very often.
This must be a record that we've got the licensing so early.
Of course there is. So like everything that could be just like at least remotely interesting for customers, there is a free trial. Yes, if there is a free trial, your E5 subscription won't be enough. So it's very likely that they will set this up. I think it's not finished right now, this how they will sell it, but only if you have and I will need to look it up. If you have E3 or E5, then you can just like do this free trial. So if you're some kind of business license, like less than 300 seats in your organization, then you're not eligible for that. And this means they are targeting enterprises, just like very huge organizations, where it really makes sense, because most likely the smaller organizations are not very likely to pay this fee, or this additional fee.
Yeah, it is the enterprise licenses. So you don't have to have E5 to get Priva, and I think that's an important element of it. It's not mandatory to have E5.
Yeah, you can do with the E1 and E3 as well.
Yeah,
but you need to be in enterprise.
So it will give you more capabilities than you could with the kind of standard E5, where you could search for personally identifiable information. There's more capabilities to manage it within that.
Yeah, and it is the services that are in there. It's a couple of services that are available at the moment. It's not the full E5 compliance management of, there's none of that auto-magically labeling things or anything like that. That still sits firmly within the E5 compliance suite of tools.
And you can tell that this actually is the case because this is not available for a GCC. And this just reflects the differences that we see between GCC and the usual enterprise cloud. So I think it's just it's exciting right now to see if customers will adopt this and if this will become a thing. I would just lean back and wait until they rename it. After that,
sorry, maybe a question for Louise and Michael. I know that there's a lot around kind of personal information when it comes to Germany and the Workers' Council.
Don't get me started.
Will this be more useful for them? Another thing to argue about, or do you think it's more relevant there?
I think it might be an opportunity, though. If I get this correct, this is somewhere between the thing that comes with the E3 license and the E5 license. It's somewhere in between, right? Like makes it a little bit easier to get into compliance. And I think that might be a good opportunity. Although I think it would also need some support or maybe consultants to really get them and to deliver that to the customers, because from my experience, it's difficult, especially for not only Workers' Council, but for the German market to adapt to the whole thing when a big software company gives you something that makes your life better. And it's I think the German market is always nah, I don't know. Is it though?
Yeah. So my experience is quite similar on that. And I feel yes, German customers are just quite hesitant when it comes to adopting cloud technologies. They're just very, really hesitant because there is just all kind of very uninformed and undereducated guesses whoa, this is not secure, it can't be compliant, it is someone else's computer. Bill Gates will chip us all. Some conspiracy theory as well. But when it comes to just rational arguments, and if you tell them, you just fear that you could overexpose personal data. What if you flag this data? What if you tag it so that this is recognizable, so that we can just protect your data? Then they're
exactly.
Yeah, but for that we needed to tidy up. And then someone's you should tidy the fuck up. And they no. We have no time for that. There is no budget for that. There is no one who would just
let's just
want
to
take the responsibility for that. Can we just throw this under the carpet and then just deal as if nothing had happened and then blame the cloud?
That sounds familiar.
That sounds much easier. Much easier than actually implementing stuff.
Right? And if you do not implement stuff, then you also do not need to care about your users and their behavior as well, because you did not implement it.
It's a win-win.
You do not need to take care of your developers, because if you did not implement anything, then they do not need to extend something. It is just like a win-win-win situation. Okay, so Sarah.
Right, moving on quick. Because I'm going to start going soon as well. Reminding me that why I left the joys of large enterprises. And to move to the joys of consultancy, will you get, look, this is going to be a seamless link, just wait for this one. Move to the joys of consultancies, whereas one of the challenges, though, is that you end up with lots of different tenants. Now, nicely on the roadmap was announced this week coming up is you're going to get a little bit of tenant switching. So for some of the Microsoft 365 web apps, you can have the ability to quickly, it does say quickly, switch contexts in order to stay productive. So this is where you have multiple tenants. Could be because you're a consultant working with lots of different ones. Could be you're working for a big company and you've got a kind of development tenant, a test tenant, etc., or maybe you've got two merged tenants from mergers and acquisitions. But this seems to be a bit like for those who've used the Azure portal, you've got a nice little button at the top to be able to switch tenants and jump between different things, and it's all going to be easy and it's going to make life a lot better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, smiling and nodding for those who are listening. There's lots of smiling and nodding.
I feel like Gary should go first on that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, looking at this announcement, it's kind of, well, we've already given you this in other applications, and now we're just going to add it to a few others. So, things like Azure DevOps, Azure Portal, it's already been there. You've already got the little drop down of the different tenants that you can switch to. So it's kind of, well, we're just extending this out to apps that you use in 365. So Outlook Web and OneDrive is two of the examples, and I think I'd like to think that this has been pushed through with by OneDrive and Outlook being candidates, that it's I use both of those, but I've used them as the PWA apps as well, the progressive web apps, so not the desktop apps, and it's that movement towards these newer style of applications that are web but running on your desktop, that it's adding those extra features in. And yeah, I'm happy for it to arrive in Outlook Web, definitely, because I do switch between different accounts, so anything that makes that easier and I can do it in the same window rather than having to have different profiles, that's always a good thing.
You mentioned DevOps and the Azure portal. You've been able to do it there. And obviously the way we handled things before was to have lots of either Chrome or Edge profiles. So does this mean when you're using the Azure portal, do you just flip between things in that rather than having different profiles now?
Yeah, you just do it within the portal itself rather than having to have multiple instances of your profile. So if you've got one account that's in multiple tenants, you can easily switch.
But this is slightly different though, isn't it? This is account switching.
Oh, so you think this isn't tenant switching?
With multi-account account switching feature, users will be able to sign into multiple work or personal accounts in the same browser. So this is account, and then switch between them in an app.
And I feel
you've just blown my bubble out.
I feel like there's also just like two aspects that I would just like emphasize here. So first thing is, from a technical perspective, I'm not really sure if this does not fuck up everything, just like with SSO and all my credentials, and just like, and still I'm logging out and in again, just like all the time. So this is my technical concern. And the other thing is just like more working behavior. So is it really a good thing to just like merge contexts in which we work, or is it still easier to say, okay, I will deliberately go into my, development environment, into that tenant where I used to do this for customer A, and after that I will do something for customer B, and not doing all the all things all together and just like context switching all the time, because we know the more we do that, the less likely it is that we can focus. And I think this is just like,
Whereas if you have
it's a bad
different
idea.
profiles, you can have them next to each other at the same time, and then you're even quicker switching that context, right?
Yes, and I should not be quicker in that. So I think we should just like be slowing down things. I feel like it's so if you're a little bit like me, it's just like super important just like to choose. Okay, so now I will focus on this one task. And if you give me too many choices, and if you make it too easy for me to just like do a gazillion things at the same time, then it's very likely that I do not get stuff done at all.
True.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, go on now.
I was going to say that where I've used this in the apps, in the native apps a lot, is OneDrive. Sorry, OneNote. Having OneNotes from personal tenant, work tenant.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's. I think that doesn't. Well.
Except when it doesn't sync.
Except when it doesn't. But that's one that's really easy. You know, when you need to swap between the contexts, which I find very, very helpful. I think seeing this go into the web apps, that'll make a difference. I have found it with things like sensitivity labels. It starts to get really quite awkward when you're logged in with multiple accounts. Well, actually, which sensitivity labels are coming down, and which ones are you applying? So I think there are certain scenarios where you kind of look at it and go, it's actually easier just to keep it separated.
Yeah.
But
so I feel like we nerds, we think about M365 literally 24/7.
Which is depressing.
And I find this inspiring, but it's just like, so we're all different, and I can respect your opinion. But there are just like people, just like normal people with normal jobs, and they do not want to think about this all the time. They already have a job, and they are good at this, most probably, or some of them are. They do not. I don't know them, so. Everyone, of course, is super awesome. But they do not want to think about, and if I'm logged in here, those sensitivity labels will be applied. Or if I do too many tenants at once in OneNote, then it might be that the sync engine that sits behind OneNote does not work properly. They do not want that. It should just work.
Question.
And I feel,
Go, Michael.
If you are one of those normal people, right, not thinking about M365 the whole time, how likely is it?
Sorry, I don't understand this question.
I haven't asked it. How likely is it that you have to switch between different tenants or accounts, actually?
So I can answer
because I know that from Sorry,
I'm doing that with a client at the moment, and we're doing tests for the intranet, and some of the people there are having to go into a dev one to kind of see the POC, and then in test they're going to do the UAT to create the content and go into live. And I've had to educate everyone in setting up edge profiles and things on there. This would be a lot easier to be able to have that drop down and move between environments. We'd have different colors from there. So not massive numbers, I do agree. But when you do, and I think the other one we've worked with a few clients recently with mergers and acquisitions, and there's a process where they end up with two different accounts, and they have to, there's some stuff here and there's some stuff over there, and I think to Louise's point, they tied it up completely, and it doesn't take ages and years for this stuff to happen. For that to be able to kind of jump between different tenants would be useful. So not so many.
I think the mergers and acquisitions is probably the biggest scenario that I see in a commercial space. Other than that, it would be people using their own devices for personal tenants and BYOD. And in particular, there's more and more push to personal tenants, personal teams, Windows 11. I can see more and more scenarios where people are using their own devices for both work and play.
So everyone who's creating content for a living, any agency, any copywriter, anyone who needs to deliver some kind of content and needs to do that in a certain environment will be tenant switching. And they do not need to be an M365 expert or whatsoever. They just need to do their job, and they only want to do their job, and they do not want to think about, whoa, what is going on here now, just because they have 3 customers.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
point.
does need to be balanced between the accidental. Oh, I've just put it into the wrong tenant, saved it into the wrong OneDrive. But
I mean, did you never prepare a demo in the wrong tenant?
God. By default, but you start in the wrong tenant, don't you?
I absolutely did not do that today.
Today was the worst day since yesterday.
Yeah. Right, let's carry on so we can get on to some of the other news. And Gary, you picked up a few things from the SharePoint roadmap pit stop. Now, we're not going to try and go through every single little last one of these because there's some nice ones. I'd love to see the new Jira and Confluence connectors for Microsoft Search. Was good to see to bring the things through. It's all about search. I love me a bit of search. There was nice happy birthdays from outside your meeting hours. I'm trying to find the ones you think, oh, a nice bit of Viva Topics news, but Kev, move on, let it go. Don't obsess with topics too much.
So this one that we've just got to has made Al very happy, I think. And this is the pairing the Teams channels and the naming between the Teams channels and the SharePoint folders underneath, because it's been an issue. Woo! Yeah, exactly. Who needs consistency, right? So this has now been brought in. So future, the names will be kept similar.
No, they are fixing a bug, and they are calling this a feature again. So
I completely agree. This is
absolutely always. So we know you create a team, you create a channel. In this moment, a folder representing this channel will be provisioned on that SharePoint site. And of course, until now, this is just like a one-time thing. So there is no sync in between of those both worlds. And we taught users for 5 years now, do not rename channels because you will break everything and just like in the distance sirens. Yeah, so it will be just like it does not work. So now they fix this bug and they sell this as a feature. Are you kidding me? It's just like so still I have opinions on that. So even if it does work. Yeah, so you have a channel. This channel has a purpose. So content lives in this channel. And now you give users that option to rename that channel. And yes,
they've always had it.
Yeah, I know, but it was not recommended. But now they recommend this, and we tell people, hey, this is no big deal. And so there's perhaps a channel, and it lives already for 2 years. So there's a lot of conversations going on in that. There's a lot of content in the document library and even in the associated libraries that we can have as well. And now you give users that option to rename that channel. And let's say it's not a stupid typo. This means they are literally rebranding something.
And I think you're
exactly right. Functionality.
Yeah. But you're exactly right, Louise, because if you change the name of a channel because you've typed it in wrong, that's one thing, and that will save a lot of pain and a lot of deleted channels that you then have to wait ages to get rid of, and then you get left with the folders after the channel's gone, and it's all very confusing, and users don't understand it. But if you've had the channel for 2 years, you've had people putting comments in and chats and referencing documents that are stored in those channels, I'm hoping all of those historic chats will actually be updated so that all those links will carry on working after the channel has been renamed.
You mean like the tenant rename feature?
Yeah. And also, any Power Automate flows that are pushing things into that channel will carry on just using the GUID, obviously. Because I
was going to say most of those use the ID anyway, don't they? So which is why you get the 20-page long links.
Yeah,
to Teams channels,
and this is why we can never anywhere just like search for the display name of a channel and then get the ID from that. Just like execute any script. So this will break things, and I promise. So this is just like a job guarantee. I mean, I like it.
And it's interesting to read the detail, right? Is that if you've got a broken folder at the moment, it will only fix it when you rename it, right? So it's going to change it as you rename it. So it's going to sync them back together. But then there's the OneDrive element where you're syncing as well. And the bit that makes me kind of chuckle a bit is if you're syncing the whole library, the change will be reflected. But if you're just doing a specific folder, it doesn't. So you end up with two
Gary,
different names, right?
Just adds. So what happens if I've got a file open on my on my machine that's been synced down, and you've changed them? Oh no, you've just broken my head now.
It's this is being fixed, but I agree with Louise is that whilst it's fixing things, it could also be breaking as many things. So be careful with your renaming.
On to the next item. We're going to go positive. We're going to go positive on the next one. Microsoft 365 connected tenant templates. This is good news, right? This is good stuff, I think.
Yeah, evolution of provisioning out of the box in Teams is something which has been asked from like, the very first day people wanted to replicate Teams, right? And that kind of cloning of Teams was really, really basic, to the point where you couldn't really call it provisioning. And now it's started to progress, right? We got the templates coming in, and we could define the project teams and things like that. So now it's starting to evolve in that it's also including Power Platform integrations as well in SharePoint, so they'll automatically get provisioned updates to tabs. So
I noticed it doesn't mention Planner up the top, but it seems to have Planner on the screenshots. I don't know if that's a sneaky kind of misdirection going on there, but hopefully it will clone the Planner boards as well. I do also notice they sneak the wiki onto but no, sorry, don't talk about the wiki. We're being positive now.
Well, I think we all agree that we all have opinions on the wiki.
I think we would agree on the wiki.
We probably all share the same opinion on the wiki.
Yep.
What is the first thing when you do when you create a channel? Delete the wiki.
Delete the wiki.
That is exactly.
So. Yeah, I think good news there. I think it's good news for us Mac fans out there. I need to give this a try, actually. I haven't rolled this out, but if you're Mac, the OneDrive sync will run natively on Apple Silicon. Annoyingly, I haven't seen anything that actually talks about what it uses. I'm guessing it's performance improvement, so I'm all for that, which is good. Sorry, Al.
So known folder move. You have not had that on Mac?
Yeah, that's come into Mac.
Oh, okay.
It's just
it's been a while,
here's
right?
the folder.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
It's true, I didn't notice that. What was the other one that we jumped out that was nice? Was the focus time, wasn't it? Which I can't see.
Yeah,
Gary.
It's this is kind of what's coming. So it's in this post, but it's something to look out for. And I actually quite like the idea of this, is that from in Viva Insights, obviously we've been able to set our own focus time as individuals, and that's great. But I can see you're in a team of people and everyone's got focus time at different times. It's going to be chaos, right? Because everyone's like, I'm free, but you're not, because you're focusing, and it's not great. But this is a kind of enhancement to as the manager of a team. You're able to kind of set up shared plans, so shared focus, and share that across your team, so you have some consistency. And I really quite like that idea, because I think anything to help people, even just to think about, okay, we need to start thinking about what we're doing as a team and how we work as a unit rather than just as individuals, I think is really useful. So yeah, it's nice to see those that update come into Insights.
Totally agreed, because this comes down to what is the core of the idea of collaboration. Just like considering, do we have just like a shared and common understanding of what we do together, instead of so I do what I like and you do you, whatever works for you. So this seems like, or it sounds like, just like as if I was a totally tolerant person. Trust me, I'm not. But it's just like it's not making sure that our goals and our working
people didn't
behavior
laugh as much at that as I thought they might. So
So it's then not really aligned, and I feel like if we as a team decide this, and if this is just like a feature in an app or in a service, and if we then think about how we as an organization could adopt this, and then that leadership, of course, will show, hey, this is okay, and this is encouraged to schedule just like group focus time. So yes, I will work on my own, but you all will as well. And if you combine stuff like that with just like meeting free Friday or something like that, it could be a really powerful instrument to just like ensure that we have time to work on our stuff, because we all need this deeply focused time where it's just like nothing happens at all. So I always say, can I just listen to angry music and build stuff? So it's just like I want to immerse myself, and I do not want to be bothered with
favorite
anything.
afternoons. Yeah.
Yes, just like that. And I feel it could be powerful. It could even be more powerful if we decided, yes, let's have meetings on one day of the week, and the rest of the week is just like meeting free.
Yeah, well, I think that is kind of a developer view that you have there. I don't think that will work. But the point is,
Adopting the developer ways.
and I'd really like to emphasize this. This is scalable. This idea scales very well, and that is a good thing. I just have an example about that, because I was working with my team right now, 8 people, and we had 4 meetings and 5 polls about when should be our focus time. And we haven't decided yet. We wasted so much time on this because simply we have too many possibilities. I mean, you have 5 work days, and around noon or in the afternoon or whatever, we couldn't agree on something until I think the manager said, okay, we are doing focus time now on Tuesday afternoons or something, and I don't know what else. But I think
it's an interesting conversation, because I've been working with a lot of clients, and we've been talking about, the power of the manager of a team to actually shape the direction. So you could have 2 teams who are both working the same set of objectives, but they're working in different ways. So one might be, well, we're going to be in the office all the time. The other might be, we're going to be remote all the time. Surely it's got to be the manager or the team lead who has the final say, and that's the culture that you build in that team.
Yeah, within meetings or like in remote action, and you haven't thought about time zones yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. No. Gary will talk about async in a second.
We think about time zones all the time.
Yeah. So the nice one about time zones, and there's another article about what's new in Microsoft Teams, and now you can at least see what time zone different people in. So when you're chatting to them, it makes it very clear what time zone they're in, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it appears from this image, Megan is actually in the time zone of 2020, which is where she started with Ignite. But at least you can see where people are in the same time zone, different stuff. That I think I've seen this hit our tenants, really useful. It's just a small tweak on there, and I love the story. I love listening to Microsoft Cloud Show with Chris Johnson and AC Andrew Connell, and they talked a while back how in Outlook you can have 2 different time zones next to each other, which is really useful. Apparently it was Chris Johnson who originally suggested that. So if you ever see him, buy him a beer and thank him for that one.
That's this little improvement is something that I know we've discussed, is why is it taken so long to get here, right? Because other systems do this. Slack does it. We use Basecamp for CLI for managing that, and we're a global team, and that's had it in there. So when I'm trying to send a message to someone, it's like, this is their local time, right? And it's just that reminder. But it's just adds just so much that, when you're working with people in different time zones, it's that, well, actually, yeah, I'm in this meeting, but, the people who are joining at all different times of their day. And it's good just to build up that context with people who you don't necessarily know, right? You don't necessarily work with them day to day, but yeah, I think this is a really good feature that's been added. Small thing, but massive value.
Absolutely.
I think. Good.
Yeah, but I mean, time zones are hard, and this is why it took them so long.
Yeah. It's funny you say, 2 time zones in Outlook. I've currently got 4 in mine.
Really? Wow.
Yes, and I definitely
only have 3.
Yeah.
And other news on this one, this I'm going to put down to the Kev, you're getting old list, because there was a chat density and you could have tighter density and bring all your chat messages closer together. I had to turn it off after about half an hour because I was just finding myself staring at the screen, trying to kind of read up and down and see the right thing. I was like,
I agree with
really
Kev.
would
I
have
agree with
jumped
your
on this
initial
straight
statement.
away. Yeah.
I love
really
this.
wanted it. I really wanted it.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work and it depressed me a lot.
So most probably they should rebrand this and just like do it for just like elderly people like us.
Yeah, old person teams.
Do you think they'd have a lot of uptake if they went and the old person's view versus the young person's view?
We should stay in brand and say classic experience.
Yeah, classic. Oh yes, the modern and the classic experience. Yeah,
that was a good one.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Gary, you noticed one of these, trying to think about nice modern new things and ignoring my impending age and losing hair. Power automate actions for meetings, teams, channels, and chats, which is just a couple of lines, but I think you brought that out as something. It could be big, could be really useful.
Yeah, I think so. I think even when I saw this, I was kind of like, ooh, I'd not heard many other people talk about this, but I think it's actually the actions that have been added in to especially create Teams meetings is something that's really powerful. I think there's a lot of use cases that could be, okay, something like, let's say incidents, you want to set up a team, you want to get a meeting set up and put people into that team. I think that initial starting point, right, just creating that team has been something that's been difficult before, and now it's been Power Automate. It's going to be much easier to set up those kind of scenarios. So yeah, I think that's a good move, and it's certainly, I know that people have been asking for this. We've had requests for the CLI as well. How can I create a Teams meeting? And that's definitely things now I'm going to go back and look at and say, okay, well, how is this working? But yeah,
presumably the Graph
like
API
that.
must be in for it then if it's there in Power Automate. So
yeah, I think it's been one of those things that it's obviously a Teams meeting is not just Teams, right? It's lots of other things. It's Outlook and Exchange and all those different services all coming together to provide that service. So I think, again, if it's in Power Automate, it's going to be simple, right? It's not going to be I have to set up things in Azure and write some code and all that kind of stuff, which is going to put people off those trying to build those scenarios. So I think that's the exciting part for me.
I stumbled upon the new trigger when a user leaves a team. And this is going to be super powerful. So I will want to have a look into that, because
add them back in. Nice try. There's no escape.
Just like offboarding people.
Yeah.
But I think that is a good thing, right, for that scenario. I mean, Louise, you've talked about this in the past, right, about just leaving teams, right? I'm in this team, so should I just keep adding more teams as I'm going along, or should I go, I'm no longer actually working on this, I'm going to remove myself? And I've definitely been doing that and going, right, I've been on this project, I might carry on, but actually I'm not involved in it at the moment. I'm going to leave and I'm going to let people know. It allows when you're building templates out. Well, when you're building templates out, then you can have automations off the back of that, so you can factor that in then to your design of your templates of what is our offboarding process for this team, if you like, or what do we need to do. So I think, yeah, again, that's good.
Also, if people are leaving the team and we get an overview somewhere that people are leaving teams, then we can ask them, hey, why did you leave that team? Was it not relevant to you anymore? Is it just like outdated and probably orphaned? So should we just like archive or delete or something? Just like do something about this? Or because if users do something that is slightly remotely just like inconvenient for them, just like, yes, I need to make this decision, so that is always hard, and then leave the team, and then everyone knows that, and then they will be sending me emails. But if we do have just like a process behind this, then we could gain some insights, and then most probably in the future, the experience is better. So
So we can
I like
marketing
I just like
spam.
I like pulling data.
So we can marketing spam people whenever you leave the team. Are you sure you want to? Could we check why you want to leave this team? Please rate this team from 1 to 5. I like that idea. This could get good actually.
Sorry,
go on, Michael.
I just want to say I heard the term offboarding before, and I know this concept. This exists, right? But I hardly see this out there in the wild. People just don't leave teams. They create technical debt on and on. It's the whole idea of a life cycle. I think it's not really present to most of the users. So this could really trigger that behavior that we want to see in customers, and it makes their lives easier. So I agree. This is an awesome thing.
I think to pick up on Luis's point about you've left a team. If you're using Teams and you're building kind of community-based teams that you can join in, and maybe communities of practice, things like that, and you do actually leave, that's a great insight as a one of those leaders of that community to reach out and understand that exact reasons. So it's not just a case of I made the example of I'm on a project and I'm no longer on that and I'm going to leave. I think if you're using it for communities, that's really going to help.
You mean if customers continue to abuse Teams because they didn't want to just like use Yammer? Because Teams is not for communities, in my opinion. But I know I have customers, or I had customers as well, who were just like, yeah, but this is just somehow the same. So no, we would just like use Teams for everything now.
You heard that, right? I had customers.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, but if a customer hires me and asks me for my opinion on things, then of course I as a consultant have an opinion. And if they do the opposite of what I tell them and then blame me afterwards, then they have been my customer. So because so why would I do that? But yeah. So to all my customers listening, hi.
It's when you have the hives playing "Hate to Say I Told You So" in the background on repeat. Always fun, that.
Yeah. So this is a song that I play very, very often, and whenever a customer does not do as I told them, and afterwards just like comes again and just thinks, yeah, do you still remember us when you told us? I was sending this link of the hives. Hate to say I told you so. It's a great song.
It's a classic song. Right, let's try and wrap up the news. There was a few, I think we've covered all the bits of news, and there'll be links to all the detailed ones. We obviously didn't cover all the bits in there, so check out the show notes if you want to see the rest of those news bits. A few events coming up or things we've done. I recently spoke with Johnny Chips, a UK-based MVP who knew nothing about Viva. And I hope by the end of it he knew a bit about Viva. So do give that a listen if you're looking for any intros. In terms of events, we've got not very far. Was it almost just under 2 weeks away? Teams Nation. I think quite a few of us are speaking at this one. I'll be speaking on Allied.io. Louise, you're speaking on this, aren't you?
Yes, I will be hosting a table talk about adaptive cards together with Thomas and Tim.
Fantastic. Al, you're speaking and organising, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm speaking about assessments and compliance. So compliance manager and compliance score and all of that good stuff. And moderating the productivity stream. I was going to say modern work, but it's
productivity.
Modern
or
productivity.
Productivity.
It's classic productivity. Yeah, it'll be modern by the time we get to the end of the day.
Yeah. Michael, do we have you at Teams Nation?
No. I thought about delivering a session, but I hardly do anything with Teams lately. And I thought there are many people out there who have great content, so shouldn't try.
Do what I did. Do it on Viva and then pretend it's about Teams. Lovely.
Classic.
So you can just like add anything to a Teams tab. So whatever
Absolutely.
you.
Teams
So
is a platform.
You do your talk about Geo.
yeah. So I don't know, cooking soup in Teams,
Slack.
and then you have a session, just like it's
And that's
it's
exactly
Teams
why I said there are many people out there with great content, and I
You never saw me cooking soup in Teams, you know.
true.
Another event coming up. I don't know if anyone's going over to this. I keep seeing these and thinking, oh, it really would be good to go over to Vegas and have another big SharePoint conference. And we've got Scott Hanselman there speaking, Dan Home, Caruana, Charles Damana, Jeff Teeper as well, I think be there in person. So I know it's good to see the US events starting to get together in person as well. I certainly won't be over there next year, but yeah, maybe soon. It certainly seems to be growing and growing, the Microsoft 365 conferences, and trying to fill that space of the SharePoint conference of old as well. I think, Al, you had a nice fact about Jeff, which you haven't managed to sneak in anywhere else.
So I noticed on LinkedIn that he was celebrating 30 years at Microsoft. So congratulations to Jeff. That's quite an achievement. 30 years anywhere these days is a good achievement, but yeah.
Get shorter for murder in the UK, so yeah, that really is quite an achievement.
It's one of those evenings.
Moving swiftly on.
I'd like to think Jeff's impact on the world is a little bit more than that.
A little bit more positive than that, definitely.
Certainly true on there. Yeah, moving quickly on. European Power Platform Conference, and I can see Louise there, and I think Michael, you're speaking at this as well.
Yeah.
So over in Berlin, which should be a great event. What are you covering at that one, Michael?
Actually, I'm on a co-hosted session together with Marlin Martinez, and we are talking about why you should or should not dip your toes into Dataverse and model-driven apps.
Nice.
And actually, Marlin went on a quest, so to say, to teach me model-driven apps and Dataverse, because this is not my home turf. And yeah, we will talk about what I learned and what you could learn from my, let's say, experience.
That sounds like a good session.
And
we'll see what I've learned by then.
Yeah.
Louise, you're speaking on ALM.
No, I will not speak. So these titles are just like pretty much randomly.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like so. I will not speak about ALM. I have 2 sessions. One with my co-speaker Yannick, and we will talk about Fusion Dev Hello from the other side, how we can make a Fusion Dev team together. Like makers and developers. And the other thing is 10 things you should think about before you build an app. Because we've all been there, that we first wrote code, or first took up some controls, or first sketched something out, and after that, oh wait, so perhaps we should put some thought into that as well. And I will share what you should think about if you want to build an app.
Nice. We've got coming up the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. We don't know yet who's speaking that. I think the call for speakers is closing today, if I'm right. Oh no, 31st of March, so a little bit of time. So if you are a speaker, have a look at that great event. I know they have massive amounts that take place in that, lots of different tracks in different countries. So if you are a speaker, keep an eye out for that one. We have the Scottish Summit coming up, which is getting more and more exciting by the day, even if some people are looking at flights and realizing quite how expensive it can be to fly to Glasgow. And I think the top tip from this afternoon I heard was, if you are flying in from Europe, have a look to flights to Edinburgh instead of Glasgow, because they can be a lot cheaper. So don't miss out because you're scared by the flight prices. Do come along, it should be amazing. And finally, got Comsverse coming up end of June. Hopefully we should hear soon who some of the speakers will be. We've got the keynote from Jason Bradbury, but will be an amazing event at Mercedes World as well. Any other events anyone suddenly remembered as we've been speaking? No. In which case, I think it's time to wrap up the news. So thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this week's news, Michael. We'll be back to speak to you again in part 2 as we cover Power Platform adoption and governance. I was about to say automation. That's the wrong word. Adoption and governance. I really should know that. But yes, you'll be educating us and we'll have a good chat about that in a minute. So that will be out next week, if I remember to publish it correctly this time. So apologies, anyone listening to the last show, I haven't admitted this yet. Whatever I did with the publishing, it didn't come out until today. So apologies to Sarah and her show there, but you'll get a double header in your feeds very soon. Otherwise, thank you very much and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.